Hey guys, Christian Bachu coming at you with Solo Macchiato. Today we're going to talk about some differences in the taste between light roast coffees and dark roast coffees, particularly when it comes to cold brews. So I have a friend who reached out a while back and he wants to import coffee beans, and his sort of business model that he's trying to go to is to make this really nice, cool cold brew. So I figured I'd help him out. Now, what the beans are exactly doesn't really matter. I won't really talk about that yet. But I think today what we could talk about is some differences between the exact same bean roasted slightly lighter versus slightly darker, and what we can expect in terms of flavor profiles. How am I doing these experiments for him? Well, I'm using these big mason jars and these coffee bags. You can get them off Amazon. There's various sizes. Grinding up the coffee, I'm doing the exact same grind for both of them because I want to see the exact differences between them. And then when I figure out what I like, we're gonna bottle them in these little bottles right here and send them off to him so he can figure out what he likes and what he doesn't like, and I'll give him the recipe. There's tons of different variables with it, but I've kept the variables identical between the two, and now we're gonna get this opportunity to share this moment together where I do my first cupping, my first tasting. It's not a true cupping of the two that I have left overnight at room temperature for 12 hours. These are 1:15 ratios, so they should be nice and ready to drink. So these are the two bags of beans. Honestly, I got a lot more because there'll be some pretty significant testing. But here we are. I'm pretty excited. So this is the difference in the roast. Very, 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 very slight difference between the light and the dark. So I don't know how well this is visible on the camera, but light roast versus dark roast. Very, very, very small difference according to the roaster. Less than 30 seconds between the two. Slightly different curves, but very small difference there. The one thing I'm already noticing between the two, even though I stirred them really, really, really well before I poured them, you should always stir your coffee before you pour it. But again, you should also stir your coffee before you drink it. I'm not sure how well this can be seen in the camera, but I definitely, even with the lighting that I have here, I can notice a lot more sediment on the dark one than the light one. And that makes sense. Dark roasted coffees allow for a lot more solids to be extracted. Darker roasted coffees will also grind slightly differently, even though I use the exact same grinder, exact same setting for both of them. But I was able to pull, I can already tell in the cup, I was able to pull more out of the slightly darker roast than the lighter roast. So I'm already seeing some sedimentation just in the couple of minutes that I took to set up for this video. So we're gonna give it a nice stir before we drink it, and we'll see where it goes. In terms of smell, light roast versus dark roast, yeah, definitely more pungent, more there's a stronger smell. There's a little more caramelization that happens of the sugars within the beans, and you get a stronger smell out of the slightly darker roast. But I'm curious to see how that plays into this tasting. Looking at the two, smelling again, light roast. Cold brew. So you're not going to get too much smell and flavor out of it. Those aromatics aren't really as volatile because there's not a lot of temperature to make them volatile. Interesting. So here, the lighter roast, I'm actually getting a stronger smell of the aromatics out of the lighter roast, so that's interesting. So let's go now and give each one of these a stir. Let's bring our little rinsing bowl here. Let's give each of these a stir. Make sure that we're getting everything out of the coffee in each spoonful. Okay, I'll rinse. And now let's stir this one up. Give it a little rinse. So now for the misophonia alert, I'll be doing some slurping. Let's go with the light roast first. Okay, that's really nice. I like that. The flavors I was expecting are definitely there. A little more on the acidic side, which is expected with lighter roast and, you know, slightly less extraction. Now let's see the darker roast. Oh, that's nice. Oh yeah, you're starting to get just maybe a little more of a caramel type flavor out of it. Let's get that a really good taste. Very good. Sometimes with darker roasts, you expect a little more bitterness because of over extraction. But if anything, I think the way these were brewed at the 12-hour mark at the room temperature, I almost feel like this recipe was kind of nailed a little bit better for the darker roast coffee. I really, really like that. Let's give the light roast another taste there. Very good. I can definitely tell the same notes are there, but more muted in the light roast. Although it is really nice and it's nice and smooth, so I could definitely work with that. Oh yeah, that slightly darker roast really just brings out more of the coffee itself. That's really nice. As I keep going, I'm starting to get maybe just a little bit of bitterness in the aftertaste as compared to the light roast, and that's actually an important thing when cupping, when drinking. Just go back and forth a couple of times, and that's how you really, really, really tell the differences. I think even just the way I set up this experiment, I think we're already very, very close with it. And one thing I do want to mention, if you look at these beans, again, I'm not sure what the lighting is like, but compared to what you would buy at a grocery store, even this quote unquote dark roast is actually lighter than most grocery store roasts. They were roasted by a boutique roaster, someone who does nothing but specialty coffee, and that's what this coffee is. Coffee that scores above 80 points on the Q grading scale. And I think this roaster did an awesome job at displaying what these two coffee beans can do. Now my job is to fine tune the recipes to ensure that what ends up in the cup is as perfect as possible. Try and highlight all the good notes and try and diminish any imperfections. There will always be imperfections in crops. Sometimes if a crop goes a little too long or stays stored a little too long, or it's an older crop, you might get a little bit of a woody note. There's various things that you want to highlight, and there's various things that you want to diminish. But so far, I really like where we're at. I think for the purposes of what my friend is trying to do, I think I might work a little more with the dark. However, this light roast is also really, really nice because it's almost like you're drinking tea, very little coffee feel and flavor to it, but the amount of caffeine in these beans is actually very high. So it's almost like you're drinking nice tea, but you're getting quite the punch a couple of minutes into it if that's what you're going for. The last thing I want to do here, although let me take a couple of nice sips of them because I really like these. And there's one, and there's two. Oh yeah, this dark one, man. I'm really starting to like this one. Last thing I want to do is let's pour a little bit of milk in here, because why not? Just a tiny little bit. Let's give this a little stir, and let's just see what happens. You know, life should be all about experimentation with your coffee. At least once a week, try and do something different about your coffee. You may have nailed your recipe, nailed the varietal of coffee that you're drinking, and just be super happy with it. But just once a week, try something different. So I'm going to try adding some milk, which is not something I do very often to most of my coffees, but let's see what happens here. Oh wow, that is so nice, so smooth. And I know how much caffeine is in here, and I know how bad I'll be buzzing once I finish both of these, but that is so smooth. Let's try the darker one. Oh yeah, a little more chocolatey, a little more caramel. Caramel, man, almost like that caramel macchiato. Stay tuned, I'm gonna make a video on the history of macchiatos. Oh wow, these are nice. I almost feel like I don't need to do anything else to these recipes. These are really nice. These are really enjoyable. Okay. Well, if anyone has any different recipes that they use for cold brews, drop them in the comments below. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. And remember, as always, life is brewtiful. Enjoy.